you have been doing everything right your whole life. Showing up, staying calm, not reacting, not complaining, not falling apart when other men would. And somewhere along the way, without noticing exactly when it happened, you stopped feeling most things. You are not broken. You are not depressed. You just feel very little, and you have started to wonder if that is normal. It is not, but it is not an accident either. Every man watching this knows exactly what I am describing. The moment you can hear the worst news of your day, and your face does not move. The moment someone you once cared about says something devastating, and you catch yourself calculating rather than feeling. The moment a song that used to hit you plays, and there is nothing there. You learned to call that control, maybe even strength. What I am going to show you today is that it is neither. There are 7 things I want to go through with you. Each one is a layer of this. How it was built into you, who benefits from it, what it costs you, and what Machiavelli saw clearly 400 years ago, that most men still have not. I want to flag point 5 specifically. It is the thing that will change how you see every relationship you have ever had. Every workplace, every conflict, every time someone got exactly what they wanted from you, without you understanding why. I will come back to it. Stay with me. Let us start with what this actually is, because most men have been misidentifying it. Emotional numbness in men does not look like what they show in movies. It is not a man sitting in a dark room falling apart. It is a man sitting at a dinner table with his family, and not knowing why he feels nothing. It is a man who gets the promotion he worked 3 years for, and feels relief that it is over. Not joy, relief. It is going through the motions of a life that looks correct from the outside, while operating from somewhere completely disconnected on the inside. Psychologists call the specific version many men experience alexithymia, a difficulty identifying and describing what you feel. It affects men at significantly higher rates than women, not because men are built differently, but because of what happens to boys. You are not emotionally unavailable by nature. You became emotionally unavailable through repetition. The training was specific. You were punished, directly or indirectly, for showing certain feelings. Fear was weakness. Sadness was weakness. Even wanting comfort was weakness. You learned fast that the cost of showing those things was too high, so you stopped showing them, and then you stopped feeling them. The display disappeared first, then the signal underneath. Here is why this matters from a power perspective. Your emotions are not inconvenient noise. They are your internal intelligence system. They tell you when something is wrong before your conscious mind has the words. Shut that system down, and you are flying blind. Let us name the mechanism, because it was not random. Think about what you were actually taught about emotion growing up. Not what people said. What they demonstrated. The men you watched, fathers, coaches, older brothers, most of them had already been through the same process. They passed it on, not because they were cruel, but because they genuinely believed suppressing emotional signals was preparation for the world. Do not let them see you sweat. Stay calm. Do not give them anything to use against you. There is truth in that. But there is a version of that lesson that is strategic, and a version that removes your ability to navigate entirely. The strategic version says, choose what you show. The version installed in most men says something different. Do not feel it at all. One trains a general, the other produces a soldier who cannot read the battlefield. Machiavelli wrote, whoever desires to found a state and give it laws, must start with assuming that all men are bad and ever ready to display their vicious nature. He was describing how power systems think about the people inside them. The system does not see you as a person with a rich inner life. It sees you as a variable. And variables are easier to manage when they are predictable. Emotional men are unpredictable. Numb men are reliable. They did not suppress your emotions to hurt you. They did it because it worked. Stop. I want you to sit with that for a second. Not because of how it makes you feel, because of what it means strategically. There is a structure that benefits enormously from men who cannot read their own internal signals. Think about the modern workplace. The men who advance fastest are described as professional. And professional, in practice, means does not react emotionally, does not show discomfort, does not name what is wrong in the room. A man who feels nothing is a man you can overwork without complaint. You can underpay without resentment. That turns into action. You can move him from project to project without him pausing long enough to ask whether this is the life he actually chose. He will mistake endurance for loyalty. He will mistake compliance for maturity. And he will not understand why. At 40, he feels like he has been somewhere a very long time, with absolutely no idea how he got there. The same dynamic runs through relationships. A man who cannot read his own emotional state cannot accurately read another person's. He cannot detect the slow erosion of something that matters. He cannot feel manipulation in progress, because he has been trained to dismiss precisely those signals. He gets called strong. He gets called stable. And both of those things are partially true. But here is the other part. A numb man is also easy. He does not make demands. He does not create scenes. He does not leave. Stability in a man, when it comes from numbness and not from choice, is not a virtue. It is a lease that someone else holds. Think about a specific kind of decision. Not the big obvious ones, the quiet ones. The choice to stay somewhere 3 years longer than you should have. The relationship you never ended because you did not feel strongly enough about it either way. The conversation you never had because raising it would require you to name something you had learned not to name. A man operating from numbness does not make bad decisions because he is stupid. He makes them because the instrument he would use to evaluate them has been turned off. Your emotional responses are not just feelings, they are data. Your nervous system telling you, something here does not fit. Something here is costing you more than you are getting. The man who has access to that data has an advantage. Not because feelings tell you what to do, but because they tell you what to look at more carefully. When you shut down the signal, you do not become rational. You become more manipulable. Decisions do not stop happening because you cannot feel the right inputs. You still decide. But now you decide from patterns other people installed, not from your own read of the room. Other people's voices become louder when your own is quiet. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The man who does not know what he really is gives everyone around him the advantage of defining him." Here is what I want you to hold before point 5. Everything I have shown you so far is the trap. What comes next is what the trap was actually for. Point 5. This is the one I told you about at the beginning. Machiavelli understood something that most people who quote him completely miss. He was not just writing about how to take power from others. He was writing about what makes a man takeable. The man who cannot read himself cannot read the game. Emotional intelligence, not in the soft sense, but in the strategic sense, is your ability to detect what is happening in a room before it is visible. To sense the shift in someone's tone 3 seconds before the manipulation begins. To feel the wrongness of a situation before you can articulate it. That is your early warning system. The man who has had his early warning system disabled from childhood is the easiest man to maneuver. He gets played and calls it bad luck. He gets manipulated and calls it life. He gets used and calls it loyalty. Because at no point did the signal fire clearly enough for him to pause and ask, wait, what is actually happening here? This is Machiavelli's warning. Not that the world is full of people who will use you. He assumed that his warning is that the man who cannot feel cannot protect himself, because protection begins with detection. You cannot guard against what you cannot sense. The conditioning that told you feeling less made you stronger was the conditioning of someone who needed you not to see what was coming. That is not strength they gave you. That is a blindfold they called discipline. This needs to be said directly, because most men do not want to hear it. The numb man does not just damage himself. He shapes everyone around him. The men who raised you, if they were emotionally unavailable, did not do nothing to you. Absence is still a thing. You learned your emotional range by watching theirs. You learned what was expressible by watching what they expressed. You learned where the ceiling was. And unless you interrupt it, you will pass that ceiling on. To your children, to the people closest to you, to the younger men who watch how you operate and build their model from it. This is how it propagates, not through cruelty, through inheritance. The man who reclaims his emotional intelligence does not just change himself, he stops the line. He changes what gets demonstrated to everyone in his field of gravity. That is not a therapy point, that is a power point. The influence a man carries is not only what he does, it is what he shows is possible. A man who feels clearly and acts strategically demonstrates something most of the men around him have never seen. You have been told your whole life that the strong man feels nothing. Consider the possibility that whoever told you that needed you not to feel. The thing I want to leave you with is this. Turning this back on is not a soft process. It is not therapy. It is not journaling. It is not sitting in a circle. It is intelligence recovery. You are reclaiming the instrument that tells you what is actually happening in your life, your relationships, and the rooms you walk into. You are reactivating the part of you that detects threat, opportunity, and betrayal before they become obvious. The Stoics were precise about this. They did not say, feel everything. They said, know what you feel, then choose your response. Not suppression, not performance. Awareness, followed by deliberate choice. The man who does not know what he feels cannot choose his response. He can only react to the programs already running inside him. The man who does know has something rare, the actual ability to decide. Not softness. The cold, strategic clarity of a man who knows exactly what he feels, why he feels it, and what he is going to do about it. That is what untouchable actually looks like. At the beginning of this video, I described a man who has done everything right, shown up, stayed calm, and felt very little for a very long time. Now you know what he actually is. He is not strong, he is managed. He was handed instructions dressed as virtues and followed them faithfully, without ever asking who wrote them or why. He is a man who cannot be reached because he cannot reach himself. You have a choice now, not to become emotional, to become accurate. The man who knows what he feels has the one advantage that cannot be taken. He knows what is real. If this landed, drop the word signal in the comments, not for me, because it means you heard it. Subscribe to Machiavelli Strategy Code. New strategy every week. For the men who are done being managed.